Last year, Birdkeeper Toby and I made a fairly interesting kind of video. We took the country of England and tried to come up with what it might be like as a Pokemon region. This included cities and locations, potential plot points and mythology a story could touch on, and of course, brand new Pokemon that would be in this hypothetical England-based region. Well, today I wanted to do something similar to that, although instead of talking about England and the UK again, I wanted to talk about a different country that I think would make an awesome Pokemon region. Hold on to your chitin, because today we're going to be taking a look at the seaside country of Greece and what it might be like as a Pokemon region. First things first though, there's a couple quick things to talk about before we get started. Number one is that this video is not meant to be speculation for a legitimate new Pokemon region. People will probably see this video at different times, and if you're watching this in like 5 years and the next Pokemon game is coming out, just know that this video is something I made for fun and isn't meant to be a theory or speculation about a new Pokemon game's region. The second thing is that for a lot of the places in Greece, I have no idea how to pronounce them. Google can only help me so much, so please forgive any mispronounced words or places, as there's probably going to be quite a few in this video. Also, one last thing, but there's kind of a lot to go through in this video, so fair warning that it might be on the longer side. I tried to cut some parts of the video down a little bit, so I unfortunately won't be able to share every idea I have for this hypothetical region, but hopefully you'll still be able to get a general picture of what I'm envisioning this region would be like. Okay, without further ado, let's jump right in and take a look at what Greece might be like as a Pokemon region. So before actually sitting down and making this video, I found that I didn't really know too much about Greece. My only exposure to Greek culture was the Disney film Hercules and a middle school literature class that focused on the Greek gods and ancient writings. Needless to say, I didn't really know much. Despite my lack of knowledge about the country though, I still found what little I did learn to be pretty interesting and piqued my interest to know more. After doing some research on both the mythology of the country as well as the modern era, I found that Greece is actually a very interesting place and it's a prime candidate to be a good Pokemon region. One of the big reasons I feel this way is because the country has very diverse geography and animal life in it, which would translate well into a region in the Pokemon world. It has many mountainous areas, plains and fields, forests, seaside areas, and there's even some places where it snows too. Because of all this variety in landscapes, the Pokemon you'd find in this region would be pretty varied as well. I imagine you'd find Pokemon like Skiddo, Go-Goat, Teddiursa, Ursaring, and Riolu in the mountainous areas. Ocean and water routes could have Pokemon such as Tortuga, Skrelp, Seal, Basculin, and Ducklets. Plains and forests would have Dedenne, Bunnelby, Zubat, Noibat, Deerling, Stantler, and Shinx that could be caught. And snowy areas could have Beartic, Swinub, Snorunt, and Delibird. Now obviously, this is just a small handful of Pokemon that might be found in this region, but many of the ones I just listed are actually based on real-life animals that live in these areas in Greece. Another big thing about Greece's landscape is that there are tons of ancient ruins and structures scattered throughout it, and I think that were it ever a Pokemon region, these remnants of the past would make exploring this region really fun and adventurous. I'll talk a little more about specific ruins that could be included later, but in general, if many of these routes had ancient buildings or constructs you could discover, with perhaps ancient Pokemon inhabiting them, it would make this region stand out quite a lot while also being fairly faithful to real-life Greece's many ruins. Let's switch over to the towns and locations of this region now. In most Pokemon games, the player's starting town is always pretty small. The village of Araxos in Greece would make a pretty nice starting town, I feel like. It's technically a small community with a few other villages part of it, but even then, they're all quiet and smaller towns, and if the starting town was based on this general area, it would fit in well alongside other starting towns. Going to the east of Araxos, you run into the city of Tripoli, which would make for a fairly standard second town in a trainer's journey. It's not necessarily the biggest city in Greece, but it's in no way considered small. There's a few neat things in this town like a cathedral and a train station, but overall it's just a normal Greek city, and I think that every Pokemon region always needs some standard towns for the player to visit. Just south of Tripoli is the city of Sparta. In real life, this is a modern city that has the ruins of the ancient city of Sparta there as well. While a town based off of the modern city could work and be pretty cool, I think that instead having the old ruins of Sparta be the primary feature of this location would be a little more interesting to explore. It's one of the more well-known ruin locations in Greece, and they could expand them in-game and make it so you can find all sorts of ancient items and Pokemon here. I can think of no better place for finding Bronzor or maybe Golett's. Alright, going north now, we run into the capital of Greece, which this region would obviously have to have a city based off of. Athens, which is by far the largest city in all of Greece, would definitely be this region's Lumios, in that it would be a giant city for the player to run around and explore. Aside from being such a huge city in real life, Athens is very unique in that it combines both the ancient past and modern eras of Greece together. In real life, the Acropolis, as well as ruins around it, are in the center of the city, with more modern and recent buildings in the surrounding area. While I haven't ever been to Athens, just from an outsider's impression, it's kind of cool to see these two different eras of life converging together, and I would love to see a Pokemon City based off of it and all the ideas that could come from it. Maybe the Acropolis is where the region's legendary could reside, or perhaps could be home to the city's gym leader. Going northwest of Athens, you would eventually run into the mountainous town of Delphi, which would make for a great Pokemon location. Delphi is sort of similar to Sparta in that it's actually the site of a bunch of ancient ruins, as well as being a modern town too. Unlike Sparta, however, I think that a city based off of Delphi should have both the modern city aspect to it, as well as the Delphi Theater ruins, which are the prominent ruins associated with the town. While we're not quite jumping into the story section yet, I think there could totally be some in-game lore and myths about how in the ancient past, a Delphox used to reside in the theater and tell people the future. Delphox's name is inspired by the Oracle of Delphi of ancient Greece, so it would be cool to put in a reference to that. Maybe somebody in the ruins could also give you a Fennekin too. Going north of Delphi, you would encounter a few notable areas as you move north across the region. The first is Larissa, which is another fairly large Greek city that has many ruins, a river, and is located by some fairly large mountains. If you go west from Larissa, you'd run into the monasteries of Meteora, which are monasteries built on top of mountains. I can totally imagine a mountain-themed route with buildings based on these monasteries being places you could reach and scale to. Alright, let's address the 7.8 sized elephant in the room. Even though Greece has pretty diverse geography and cities, it's still located right next to the ocean and has a ton of islands and island cities that are considered part of it. I know that many people are sort of hesitant when it comes to water routes or oceans in Pokemon games, and to be honest, I partially feel that way too, but a lot of the Greek islands are significant and interesting enough that I think they would have to be included, even if they would come with some pretty long water routes. In the interest of time, I won't go into all of the different islands and island towns I'd like to see, but some of the highlights include the hot springs of Polyknotos, the island of Samos, which in ancient times had a lot of vineyards, which could make for a neat place to visit and a potential area a gym leader could be, and the island of Crete or Crete, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, which is big enough that it could actually have two towns on either side of it. Shifting away from locations for a second, and I hate to break up the flow of the video like this, but there's really no natural way for me to bring this up, I want to quickly talk about what this region's side activity could be. Ever since Generation 3, most Pokemon games have included a side activity that players could choose to do. We've had contests in Hoenn and Sinnoh, the Pokemon Musical in Pokestar Studios and Unova, and the Pokeathlon in Johto as engaging side activities the player could choose to participate in alongside earning gym badges. Considering that this region is based off of Greece and one of the biggest events in the world, the Olympic Games, originated in ancient Greece, I think the minigame for this region should be the Pokemon World's equivalent of the Olympics. Going back to the side activities I mentioned before, I think that the Pokeathlon is a good basis for what I'm imagining an Olympic Games based side activity would be like. You and your Pokemon would compete in a variety of different athletic games and challenges together. Things like the racing and flag capturing minigames from the Pokeathlon would fit in well, and they could also add in some modern Olympic activities like the long jump or weightlifting, as well as some traditional ancient Greek sports like the discus throw too. It would essentially boil down to being an improved Pokeathlon, but in my opinion, it would fit this region's aesthetic extremely well. Okay, let's jump back into the locations really quickly now because there's one more place on the mainland of Greece that I want to talk about. If you go just a little bit south of Thessaloniki, in roughly this area, you'll run into a mountain known as Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus is such a prominent part of Greek mythology, being that it's where the gods are said to reside, that a Greek-based region would almost have to include it. I actually think it could be a really neat place for the region's Pokemon League to be. With the Elite Four at the top, and Victory Row would be the actual mountain which players would have to climb in order to reach them. This is actually a perfect segue into talking about the story and characters of this region, starting with the Elite Four and Gym Leaders. I think it would be awesome to have these notable trainers of the region all be based off of the Greek gods. In Greek mythology, there's 12 different gods and goddesses, referred to as the 12 Olympians, that are considered to be the major deities and rule over many of the forces of the world. And I think it would be kind of symbolic in a way if the Gym Leaders and Elite Four members were based on and represented these gods. I've actually come up with some ideas on what gods these powerful trainers would be based off of and what typing they could each specialize in. So regarding the gym leaders, there could be a grass-type leader based off of Demeter, goddess of agriculture, a fairy-type leader based off of Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, a steel-type based off of Hephaestus, god of metalwork and crafting, a flying gym leader based off of Hermes, god of traveling and also wearer of the stylish winged shoes, a fighting gym leader that's a double battle against gym leaders based on Ares and Athena, who are both deities of war and strategy, a fire gym based on Apollo, who isn't necessarily associated with fire but is a god of light and symbolizes the sun, a rock type gym based on Hestia, goddess of the hearth and family because those things need to be rock solid in life, and a poison type leader based on Dionysus, god of wine and madness. In terms of the Elite Four, I'm thinking that Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and Hera would be the four main trainers, having Electric, Water, Dark/Ghost, and Normal type Pokemon respectively. I was half tempted to put Fire for Hades because, you know.
What? Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
But I feel like in general, either Dark or Ghost type fit his legitimate mythological counterpart a little better. Honestly, just taking a step back, it's kind of surprising how well Greek gods fit into being Pokemon trainers. And for what it's worth, I think it would be a neat theme to have throughout the region, and could possibly tie into a potential story which I'll detail in a second. First things first though, you're probably wondering, if the gym leaders in the Elite Four are based on Greek gods, then what about the champion? Well, I thought about this for a while, and while it would be cool to have maybe another character based on a god, or perhaps even a Greek titan be the champion, I think it would be more in line with Greek myths if the champion was based on a Greek hero. Now this is getting into potential story and plot points the region could touch on, but in my opinion, your rival in this theoretical region should be based off of a Greek hero like Perseus, Achilles, Odysseus, or even Jason. All of these people were just mortals, but throughout their various stories and adventures, they grew stronger and got more competent, and I think that would be a perfect concept to parallel with a rival in this region. Maybe your rival could start out immature and naive, maybe even a jerk, but throughout his journey he could get more serious and mature and eventually work his way into the champion position. It would be a great way to acknowledge classic Greek stories while also making a major theme from them fit into a Pokemon region story. As far as just the general plot and story of this region would go, there is a lot of different myths and legends out there that could be touched upon for a story. Like, there's so many Greek myths out there that could be used as a basis for the plot that I have no idea where to even start. One idea I have that originates from the Greek mythos is maybe the main antagonist of the region could be a character based on Cronus, one of the ancient titans of Greece. The Titans in Greek mythology are the divine beings that came before the 12 Olympians. They aren't the oldest gods in the Greek mythos, that honor goes to the primordial deities, but they did precede the Olympians, and a lot of them are actually the parents of the 12, if you can believe it. If I'm understanding the myths about Cronus right, he actually rose up and overthrew his father Uranus, who was the ruler of the universe. At this point, Cronus and the other Titans began the rule of Greece in what was called the Golden Age. Unfortunately, things weren't at ease for Cronus as his father foresaw his downfall from his own children. Eventually, a war erupted between the Titans and the Olympians named the Titanomachy, where the Olympians were victorious and the Titans were dethroned. Sorry to go into a history lesson there, but I think the story for this region could take some inspiration from this classic Greek myth. The evil team could be based on the mythological Titans led by a Cronus-inspired character, and perhaps their goal could be to either take over the region, or maybe try and at least take over the Elite Four, which would be run by the Olympian-based trainers. I think one way to really make the story more engaging is for the evil team to have a history with the gym leaders in Elite Four. Like the myth about the Titans being rulers before the Olympians overthrew them, perhaps the leaders of this evil team were the original Elite Four members of this region in the past. And the current gym leaders in Elite Four had banded together to overthrow them, and now the original Elite Four members are back for their revenge. It's kind of a pseudo-extension to the Greek myth in a way, but I could see it making for an interesting story. If you throw in an idea about the Titans using a regional legendary to try and accomplish their goal, you have a perfect Pokemon story created. Speaking of legendary Pokemon, I think we should shift our focus one last time and talk about one of the biggest parts of any new Pokemon region, which is the brand new Pokemon that would be created and set loose upon the land. We already talked about what older Pokemon could be found in this region, but now we can discuss all the new monsters that might fit in with a Greek-inspired locale. Starting with just common Pokemon you'd find all over the region, one animal that would fit this region well if it became a Pokemon is the wild boar, which Greece is known to have quite a few of. I know we've had pig and boar Pokemon in the past, such as Emboar, Grumpig, and even Piloswine to an extent, but a boar Pokemon that doesn't become bipedal or a wrestler would be kind of nice to see. Mamoswine sort of counts, but I'd really like to see a full-on wild boar Pokemon and all the ideas they could come up with for it. An electric or fire typing, or even a combination of both those types, would fit the wild nature of this Pokemon, and they could really do some cool things with it to try and sell the Greek feeling. Another animal I've always wanted to get the Pokemon treatment is a dolphin, and considering that it is one of Greece's national animals, I think this region would be the perfect opportunity to include one. As of right now, we don't know the entire Pokemon Sun and Moon Pokedex, as those games haven't released yet, so who knows, there might be a Dolphin Pokemon awaiting us. But if there isn't, then I think a Greek region would be an amazing opportunity to add one to the games. In terms of the actual Pokemon itself, I wouldn't really want it to be too complex of a design, but I think they could still do some cool things with it while keeping it relatively basic and simple. I personally see it as having a typing like Water Psychic or Water Fairy, based on how dolphins are usually portrayed as very fun and playful, and it could also have the ability Prankster as well, just to further emphasize dolphins' nature in real life. One last idea I have for just a regular Pokemon you'd find around the region is a Pokemon based off of Pandora's Box. I know that many people don't like Pokemon based on inanimate objects, but this hypothetical Pokemon, based on the jar or box that Pandora opened which contained all of the evils of the world, could be kinda cool if done right. I mean, what more inspiration than a box containing the world's evil do you really need to make a Pokemon? In my mind, I'm envisioning this creature as a dark or dark ghost type that's essentially just a large, sinister chest. Maybe they could make the actual Pokemon like a spirit type creature or something that inhabits the chest and you see it occasionally during attacks. Regardless, every region has sort of an inanimate object Pokemon, and this Pandora Box Pokemon could be the Greek region's version. Okay, to finish off this video, I want to talk about brand new legendary Pokemon that could be found here. Greece is home to so many myths, so many legends, and so many monsters that the possibilities for legendary Pokemon is well within the hundreds. They could have a Cyclops legendary, a Minotaur, a Centaur, and the ideas just don't ever stop. With an endless amount of possibilities, here are 2 legendary Pokemon that I thought of for this region. My ideas, to be honest, probably aren't the most creative or cool for this region, so by all means, feel free to comment with your ideas on some cool Greek legendary Pokemon that you think would be cooler or fit better. Okay, so the first idea I have is a Pokemon based on horse automatons that the god Hephaestus is said to have made. Generally, in mythology, if a god makes something, then it's usually pretty special, and considering that in one myth, Hephaestus made essentially a steel robot horse, I think that would be a cool legendary to have. There's very few man-made Pokemon out there, and having a legendary Pokemon that would pretty much be a robot horse might be kinda cool to see. It could also get an uncommon typing like Steel Fire to set it apart from other horse Pokemon that are out there. The other legendary idea I have is a Griffin. The Griffin is referenced and shown a lot throughout Greece's mythology, and surprisingly, we haven't had a Pokemon based on one yet. They could do some cool things with its typing, like maybe make it ground flying to reference the fact that it's a combination of both a land and sky animal, and give it an ability to reference maybe its flying typing like Aerolade or something like that. I really can't think of any brand new abilities for it, but regardless, I think a Griffin Pokemon would be really cool to see. And those are just 2 of my ideas regarding some of the legendary Pokemon a Greek region could have, but obviously there are tons of ideas out there. I think a Minotaur could be a cool legendary, and also maybe something like the Hydra too. There's just so much potential for a bunch of legendary Pokemon that this region could have. Anyways, this has been a look at what I think a Greek-based Pokemon region could be like. Personally, I think a region based on Greece could be really engaging and fun to explore if it was able to have a focus on both the modern day aspects of Greece, as well as the ancient past and ruins. And if this region also did some cool things with the story and had some awesome new Pokemon in it, I would absolutely love this region. Anyways, what do you think? Did I miss any cool areas or places in Greece? Do you have better ideas for new Pokemon and legendaries for this region? Feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I will catch you later.